Hello, everyone. Today is Tuesday, April 16th. My name is Maggie Kulyk. I am the CEO and founder of Chicory Wealth, and it is my distinct pleasure to be here with my, well, how much, I want to call you friend, even though we've only met, we maybe met once, but I've talked to you, but LaTosha Brown of Black Voters Matter. For those of you who are, we're recording today, Lynn, so you might want to cut your camera. For those of you who may not be familiar, who might be watching this webinar, Chicory Wealth has always had an orientation to philanthropic concerns, for lack of a better way of phrasing it. We had a giving group for years and years that was the function of clients. We're recording, so you might want to cut your camera, Jenny, when you get a minute. So we would invite our clients to give us recommendations for philanthropy, for charities. Then we had a client board who would make some decisions and decide on a couple of charities. And then we would have a party. In the old days, we had the party around Christmas or the holiday season. COVID hit, and then we had a couple of Zoom parties because we couldn't meet in person. And then we decided to move that event to the fall, just in case we had to go back inside, because we were a little snake bit at having to, make those changes on the fly. We decided this year to kind of shift our focus a little bit and to, in a way, lead on this issue by making a commitment as an organization to give 1% of our top line revenue to a nonprofit or nonprofits with a focus on social justice. And the emphasis here is a bias of mine, to be frank, although my team supports it 100%. I've been very influenced over the years by my involvement in an organization called the Women Donors Network. And as the Women Donors Network moved more and more into its own sense of empowerment and its own sense of wanting to be more engaged in collective giving, we began to hone a kind of philosophy of making sure we were giving to grassroots movements and making sure almost exclusively, not as much as I wish, but almost exclusively, that activists themselves were making the decisions about where those dollars went. And with the basic philosophy that those closest to the pain should be closest to the power. So this year we are highlighting 3 organizations that we believe exemplify very much that philosophy, and particularly have an orientation to in this very critical election year around working with voter education, voter empowerment, getting out votes, protecting democracy, et cetera, et cetera. So LaTosha Brown and organization Black Voters Matter came right to the top of the list because what's cool about Black Voters Matter is it is a national organization. We have clients nationally, but it's also happens to be, located here in the Atlanta area. Although I know you're working all over the South. And today we have LaTosha Brown, one of the leaders of that organization and a co-founder, I believe. Do I have that right, LaTosha? To tell us more about what they're doing and what she's up to and how we can support her. And we're hoping that this message gets across and that our clients join us in supporting Black Voters Matter. So, LaTosha, kick us off. Tell us a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, how you all got started, and whatever you want to say about, kind of your origins and where you're at now, what you're working on.
I sure will. Well, the first thing I did right was the day I started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on, hold on. That is a snippet of a song, of a freedom song from the civil rights movement. And I always start my talks with freedom songs and civil rights songs to really lay the foundation of giving homage of how our work came to be about. Our work is an extension of work that has always been going on in this country. And it's work that those of us that really truly believe in democracy and we truly believe in humanity, that we're standing in this space to do work that we can actually create the America that we desire and the America that we deserve. And so part of my work with Black Voters Matter, my background, I am an organizer from a little place called Selma, Alabama, which is probably why I always sing freedom songs, which was instrumental in the voting rights movement and the civil rights movement. And so in 2016, Cliff Albright, who's the other co-founder, and myself, wanted to create an organization that could actually provide what we felt was needed to actually help build out kind of the civic engagement and the power building infrastructure in our country. And it's really based on, quite frankly, Maggie, on our experience that over 2 decades of doing work, we were trying to figure out what were the things that were what were the things that we could contribute? There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and there's a lot of things that you can invest in. But what is it that we felt like we could do and we could do well? Because we had the experience, we had the expertise, and it was a part of a concrete strategy for us long term. And so I always, the quickest way for me to explain it is I call it the 3M strategy. So, which is kind of like the theme of my work, the things that I work on. And those 3Ms are, one, we decided that we wanted to create an organization that would move money, that would actually help mobilize money to grassroots groups, that sometimes there's a capital absorption issue on the ground where groups are so small that folks who are giving resources, donors or donor advised funds or foundations, they may not meet their criteria in terms of the threshold because of their budget, or people simply just may not know them because they don't have marketing budgets. They're just doing the work. And so our first piece, what we want to do is to move money. And so that's why our name is on our C4, it's Black Voters Matter Fund. We're very intentional about setting up a fund that we would actually support work going on the ground. And we wanted to do it in a different way. We didn't want to just create an organization that I call it an empire building model, that we're Black Voters Matter, and then we have these baby Black Voters Matters chapters. We didn't want to create that. We felt like in every single community, there are already groups that have been struggling and doing this work on the ground that's actually been holding up the work so far and needed resources so they could expand their own capacity. And so instead, we created a model that we would support grassroots groups on the ground that were doing power building work, not necessarily just civic engagement. Some of our groups are doing work around education reform, gun reform. They're doing work around public policies. They're doing work around reparations, just a variety of issues. But who are the groups that are on the front lines, that when something happens in the communities, they're the ones that respond. They're the ones that actually stand up and protect and really seek to help the community have a voice and build power. That's the model that we want to create. And so in the last 7 years, we're really excited that we've been able to build the fund with the support of folks like you, Maggie, who literally just believed in us and believed in our vision. And as a result, we've been able to invest. We always invest half of our budget back on the ground. But we've been able to invest over $35 million that we've actually written out and given to grassroots Black groups on the ground that are doing power building work. And we've seen it be extremely instrumental. And not just in federal elections, but in local elections, some of the elections but also in other aspects of things that are happening, policy changes happening in the community. The second M is that we thought it was really important that not just to give money, but we have to think about that money in itself is not going to get us where we need to get. Right, that we've got to have a larger infrastructure, movement infrastructure, that people have capacity where we're sharing information with each other, that we're actually coordinating sometimes our work so that there's not a waste of resources, that we're also looking at this as a longer term strategy. So it's not just about an election, but how we build an overall so that we can create a community that works for all of us. And so our second big bucket is that we wanted to support movement infrastructure. And the best way I can describe that is, I kind of think of us as like like the Navy SEALs, like a special ops, like they're the soldiers that are going on the ground. And every once in a while, you got to call in the Blue Angels or the Navy SEALs. You got to call in the special ops to provide some additional air cover or ground cover. And so that's what we do. And so ultimately, with our movement building infrastructure in many of the states we work in, our partners, we work with them 365 days out of the year. Even our grant cycles, we don't have a grant cycle that this is a date and this is the pot of money and y'all have to apply. We think that creates that has created a competitive environment that does not incentivize people working together. We actually judge folks based on what they need, right? Not based on this is the pot that we're putting out there and now you all go and clamor for it. No, it is what is it that you need? And then we have a cycle. Our cycle is a rolling cycle. So if there's another need that comes up, that they can come back to us based on their needs and how we assess what we can do to support them, not necessarily in competition with any other group. That has been tremendous in helping us to be able to convene almost like a coordinated campaign in many of our states, where some groups did not work together because they saw it as competition, or some groups did not work together because they saw themselves in particular issue areas. And so for us, we think it's better when we're stronger together. And so bringing these groups together that care about education, that care about Medicaid expansion, that care about public policy, to work in a more coordinated fashion, to be able to share information, sometimes even share resources, we've actually helped facilitate that as well with our movement building. In addition to that, we've provided tools like texting, being able to provide databases for them to organize around, be able to provide the infrastructure to do massive texting campaigns or massive mailing campaigns, to be able to do a lot of information around helping them to get the word out, whether that's being a thought partner around radio ads or television ads, but really to be as a support thought partner and to provide some infrastructure support so that the work that they do actually maximizes its impact. Then the third area is there's money, there's movement building, and the third M is message. We believe, or I believe, we're in a narrative war. That part of what is happening right now is who has the story, who tells the story, right? Actually builds the power. And so for us, we wanted to make sure that we're rooted, particularly with so much misinformation and disinformation, and also with the framing that part of and I were very frustrated with hearing this, the South be talked about like we're some big hole that at the end of the day, you can't change anything. There are people that run the South and you can't change anything, can't move it. Well, we showed them differently in Georgia, and we showed them differently all across the South, where there are wins because there's a new progressive coalition made up of Black folks and white folks and our Latino brothers and sisters and Indigenous people and AAPI communities, and the LGBTQ communities, that we're building a new coalition. We believe that this is a new South, right? And in order for us to work to really benefit from that we've got to work collectively to make sure that our messages are really tailored to the constituencies that we're really trying to move and mobilize, and to send a message of hope that oftentimes when we would hear messages around Black voters, it would always be negative. We're not excited. We're not going to do this. Instead of a message that literally is saying, we can win, we have power, this is why it's necessary. And so we have a bus that we take around where we call the Blackest Bus in America, that we go from community to community, and it's very festive. Every time that you see the bus, there's work already taking place there. It's a way for us to actually be able to be support for our on the ground that are doing good work. We've used that bus to do caravans, to do large registration drives, to do festivals, also even just to go in the community to share this message and send this message of hope. And so those are the three things that we do at Black Voters Matter. I'll stop there because I know, Maggie, you may have some other questions, but I'll just kind of stop that. In addition to that, I'll just say this one thing. In addition to that's kind of some of the things to help people understand the function, but we also have a vast body of work in terms of programs that we run ourselves to actually provide additional support for our partners. I'll just briefly mention a few of them. We do a lot of work, so I'll briefly mention a few of them. One is we do sick and tired. We got a sick and tired of being sick and tired campaign, which is our Medicaid expansion campaign that we're running in about 13 states. About 11 states in the South that we're actually pushing. Many of the Southern states did not expand Medicaid. And so that has created in many ways a health crisis around health access in our states. We also run, and we're kicking off, and we also have a climate justice campaign called The Block is Hot. And so with our climate justice that started right here in Georgia, primarily because in the South Georgia, people were having astronomical changes on their light bill. Their people power bill was going up to $800, $900, $1,200 a month, right? And part of what we wanted to do and what we've been doing is showing how things from food insecurity to utility bills, that all of those things are being impacted by our climate, and that the environmental justice issue and the climate change issue is not just a policy wonk issue. That is an issue that is actually impacting our day-to-day lives, not just only in terms of the quality of our life environmentally, but also it has an economic impact, particularly on marginalized communities. And so we run our Block is Hot environmental and climate justice program. We also have a youth component specifically targeted at young voters and young people. It's called Take the Field. And with Take the Field, we actually work with HBCUs and PWIs, some of the larger colleges, and we are working to support young leaders on those colleges, because what we recognize is the best people to talk to young people are young people, right? And so we empower them by supporting their leadership and some of the work that they're doing by providing grants for them to do trainings, to do town hall meetings, to do voter registration drives. And then the last one I'll mention is our warrant clinics. That part of what we recognize is that as we're doing criminal justice reform, that is important for us to really shift the dynamics of how we can see justice be administered differently. So what we do is we have a team that works with local officials on the local courts. We get them to do amnesty. You would be amazed that there's a report that came out by the Congressional Black Caucus around something as simple as a traffic ticket. It's actually a pipeline to prison, right? That part of these fines, they will accumulate, and it creates other issues and opens up this opportunity where people are literally, that feeds into mass incarceration. And so part of what we do with our warrant clinics is we organize with, we just had one this past Saturday at Ebenezer Church. I think we had over 300 people to show up, that we provide amnesty for people who might have a failure to appear or bench warrant because they didn't show up for a traffic ticket. A traffic ticket at $100 can actually wind up costing $3,000. Right. And so what we would get is we negotiate with the courts to get those fees knocked down, right, as minimum as possible. We have amnesty, and we have the court at a different place, because many of the people are afraid to go to court. We'll have it at a safe place, like a church, like we did at Ebenezer this past weekend, or community center. We have the court officials to come at that place, and we're able to clear people. We've cleared millions of dollars of debt by just providing another access point and negotiating with the courts, because it also has a different economic issue with our folks too, that many people who had a traffic ticket, because of their traffic ticket, lost their driver's license, have no ID. It has all kinds of ripple effect around that. So we see this as an economic justice issue as well. So I'll stop. There's much more I can say, but I'll stop there.
No,
we're doing a lot of work. I'll just say
it's all great. I mean, it's all fantastic. Gosh, where do I start? Well, the first thing I'll just say is, for those of you who are live with us, if you do have any questions, pop them in the chat. I don't want to be the only person who gets to talk to LaTosha. So if you have anything you want to say or you want to bring up, please do that. I'm taken by all of the work. I remember when I talked to you on the phone a month or two ago, the warrant clinic thing particularly got me, because it just feels like that whole setup is so nefarious, and the way it's like it's designed, right? It's designed to create these issues. And so I'm just curious, so you had 300 people come to Ebenezer. So you go into the community, you let the word out that this is an opportunity for them to come and clear the debt. And then they show up at the church, and there are judiciary folks there that can get this done.
And then in that process, the pre-work on the front end is we've already negotiated with the courts, and so that many of them, they've released their bench warrants. There are people that are running from a bench warrant because of a ticket that started at $150 that now is $5,000. If I couldn't pay $150,
how are you going to pay $5,000?
I'm going to pay $5,000. There are people that are sitting right now in jail for almost a year because they have less than $500 fees or $500 court fees on them. Like we're really not mindful of how this court system actually exploits that. It's another tax to the poor.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. It's a tax strategy.
It's a tax
Even
strategy.
ticketing in certain communities is a revenue generator, right?
It's a revenue generator.
It's a revenue generator.
But you're generating revenue for people who are already on the fringes that don't have a lot of resources, because quite frankly, in many instances, they're not only are they targeted, but they're the most vulnerable around this. And so I can't pay $150 debt. Now I have a $5,000 debt. Now I get arrested, I get stopped, and I get arrested for a simple traffic ticket or just a traffic stop because my tag came up. Now I'm in jail. Now my children, I've got that. What's going to happen with my kids? I've lost my little job that I have. It can cost a family thousands of dollars for something as simple that started as a traffic ticket, that if people got a little grace and a little space to be able to pay it, right, it could create a different kind of economic outcome for a family.
Yeah, amazing. Fantastic work. You guys are just everywhere. So I have lots of like questions like, oh, how many people are doing that? But I don't even want to go there. I really would rather go to, I mean, I can talk to you for 3 hours, frankly, but you don't have 3 hours to give us. So the other thing I was really captivated by when we spoke the first time, the regranting that you're doing, totally get that, and movement, infrastructure, that message, that narrative war. I could not agree with you more. Give us an example, if you would, of like one of the more insidious narratives you're seeing around this election. And how are you trying to push back on it?
Pushing back on that. Let me give an example of, I think part of what is happening, the people that are on here, I know I can't see them right now, but I'm going to ask this question. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, but I'm going to ask this question and then my point. Like, how many of you all on this call right now are really excited about this election? I mean, how many of y'all are on this?
Terrified the same as excited?
Terrified is not the same. It's not the same.
Scared. I think
I'm asking a specific question for a specific reason.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jeff.
Very concerned. Yeah.
Most of us are either concerned, scared, or what, but who's excited about this election? Right. In addition to that, how many of us are excited, really excited about either of the candidates? I'm raising this because I want you all to be honest in answering this. I understand we are concerned, we're scared. Yes.
Yeah, and we're going to do whatever we need to do.
And we're going to do what you need to do. But no one is excited. No. If we're not excited and we're the people that are going to vote no matter what, imagine people who are really, this is not the day-to-day that they're thinking about. They don't think that they can make change with it. They're not excited. And I'm saying this because I think it's important for us to start from this premise of how we're organizing. We're not going to try to make something be factual that's not factual. I don't think that this is an election that we're going to get people excited. However, I do think that this is an election that what we need to do is get people ignited. That's distinctively different. Right? That is very different in terms of what our approach can be, and our approach has to be. We also have to get beyond this idea that every election we're waiting on what I call the JFK syndrome. We're waiting for the nice charismatic character to come on a white horse and save us all from the dredges of bad politics. That is not serving us well. That part of, I mean, we've had charismatic candidates. We've had Obama. We've had Ronald Reagan. We've had, regardless of what you think about these, regardless of what you think about Trump, he's extremely charismatic. And so because of his charisma, he's a fool. I know that, but my point is that as long as we're still trying to push people towards this, we've got to have this exciting candidate, there's dangers that go along with that around the celebrityhood, right? And so part of what we did, I wanted to give an example of what I think in this moment. In this moment, we've got to move people beyond this idea or even speaking to them around, this is about excitement. We've got to move people to the space around recognizing what's at stake. We're talking about power. And when I talk to folks, it was like, this is straight about power. This isn't, and particularly Black voters, when we've been talking to Black voters, a good example, I'll give a most recent example of how we were faced with this. In 2017, there was a Senate race in Alabama. People may remember. It was Roy Moore and Doug Jones. And Roy Moore is a right-wing religious zealot, just would be deeply problematic for a variety of reasons. Doug Jones was not particularly an exciting candidate. He wasn't exciting at all, y'all, to be honest, right? Matter of fact, when you saw his commercial, he had a commercial that had a Confederate soldier general and a Union general coming out, and he said, this is what I want to be. I want to be like, I want to be the great compromiser. And I'm like, he does know
Oh,
the great
no.
right?
Yeah,
You do
yeah.
know the great compromise.
Yes, I
But
do. Yes, I do.
nevertheless,
Yes.
but nevertheless, he's a nice guy. Like, I personally really, really like him. He's a nice guy, but he didn't have the it factor, right?
Right.
And so what do you do in a campaign where you've got in a state where less than 25% of the population are African American voters? You got a state that is overwhelmingly a conservative, I'll say right, conservative state that votes 75% always Republican, right? Like, what do you do? But you see this unique opportunity. Part of what you have to do, and I think that we've got to understand this as well this year, is that you got to take the focal point. You got to shift the focal point. That we ran an entire campaign that says this isn't about the Republicans or the Democrats. This isn't about Roy Moore or Doug Jones. This is about us. And so what we centered is the candidate was our power. The candidate wasn't the candidates. It was who is best in position to help us reduce the harm happening to our communities and will be responsive to the needs of our communities. And so you have to reframe the entire way that you're organizing, that even this year, we've got to reframe this to a point to recognize that many of us that support Biden, and I don't know if this is supposed to be nonpartisan or not, but
Have at it. You're good. Just
right.
go.
That those of us that support Biden, that we have to recognize this is bigger than Biden. We can't get our emotions in. Well, why aren't they excited? Yes, Biden has done great work. He's done a whole bunch of good things. That's not going to cut it if people are not excited about him. And so what we've got to do is we've got to help people really recognize that this election is really about power. This election is really about protecting democracy, refusing fascism, about literally how do we build a multiracial, multicultural democracy that we all desire, we deserve. People respond to that, right? And so I think it's really important for us, and that's what we've been doing. Part of that has been the narrative. There's been a narrative that we've been pushing back on. And it's interesting because they've been trying to get traction for months, and we and others have been pushing back on it. This idea that Black frustration automatically means Republican gain. Where did they do that? There's no history that shows that. There's no history that shows that. We faced that in Georgia, in the Georgia race, because Herschel Walker was a favorite son of the South. He was a Heisman Trophy winner. He was a football player. He was an African-American businessman. That somehow that there are those that thought that we would just follow the celebrityhood, that there was going to be this big race where we were going, that Herschel Walker absolutely was going to beat Warnock. What happened, y'all?
Yeah.
No way. I'm saying that because, but what we did is we took the narrative early. I can remember when CNN, every single major outlet would come to me with these themes. You can look them up. These themes around Black men are going to go Herschel Walker. And I challenged that belief. And I gave a rationale of why that would not happen. Right? Yes, he may get some more folks. Okay, that's fine. But ultimately, these are the reasons why it's not going to happen. You're not going to frame us and box us in such a way. And I think that we're seeing the same way now, that there's this narrative that says that Black frustration automatically means that we go to the other side. No, that's not our biggest threat. Our biggest threat is that people will stay home. Right. Yes. And that's part of the reason why we need resources, whether it's our organization or others. If you all are contributing to political, if you really are contributing or want to see a shift around protecting this democracy, I'm just going to encourage you to literally fund early, right? That oftentimes money, and particularly marginalized communities, it comes too late. The message is already there. Once we let this message get traction, that somehow Black people we're going to swamp to Trump, that can be deeply problematic. One, that's not true. That's not what I'm hearing on the ground. But it is a narrative that is in mainstream media because, quite frankly, it gets clicks. It's sensationalized. It's the new news. So I'll just stop there.
Well, you know, one of the things you said really strikes me. The Republicans for years recognized exactly what you're saying. It's not the candidate, it's our power.
It's our
It's
power.
what we want. And you're
That's right.
seeing this. It's not about like, you know, Trump is a, to put it mildly, problematic candidate for a whole bunch of people who have historically voted Republican,
Right.
but they're going to vote
But they're going to vote.
because it's about their power.
That's right.
It's about maintaining certain tax things, deregulation, this whole laundry list of things. And you know, I think I couldn't agree with you more that I love that JFK syndrome. I'm gonna remember that one. That's exactly right. And I love the ignited, not excited. I'm telling you, if this nonprofit thing doesn't ever work out for you, you definitely have a future in marketing. That is very good. Gosh, where else to go? Well, you mentioned before you came on that, and I want to give you a little airtime on this, that Black photo, you are obviously you work 24/7 and you never sleep because you have yet another organization for women and girls you mentioned just before we came on. I want to give you a chance to speak to that if you would, please.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Well, you all might see my cool shirt. It says "Joy's Our Journey," uh,
Yeah,
the Black Girl Dream Experience Bus Tour. For some reason, I like buses. I don't
I'd
know what
see
it
that. You'd love them.
is.
That's right.
I love buses. But I around the same time, I actually founded an organization. I was a visionary for an organization called Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium. And so while we know that you know there's been a lot of discussion in terms of the contributions that Black women have been making, particularly around voting and organizing in this space, oftentimes what we don't see is the same kind of investment that even women in general in the South, of the $5 billion that are coming to the South, less than 1% of those resources are going to women. Women are carrying the South. All women, we're carrying the South on our backs. How is it that philanthropy is not supporting, and then we have the audacity to be the majority of the population and we're getting less than 1%? Come on, y'all.
Yeah.
You know, so part of my initial response, I was frustrated and I was going to go and organize philanthropy and tell them about themselves and how horrible a job they were doing, right? But really, I'm a person of faith, and quite frankly, I really felt like I got this major inspiration from God. That I got this inspiration that we could either fight to get people to do differently, or we could help lead the way. And so what came to me was the creation of this organization called Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium. It's $100 million initiative. I have the audacity to believe that we will raise $100 million. It's a big idea, but I'm a big idea person. $100 million over the next decade, or however long it takes, that we will invest in Black organizations and infrastructure that support Black women and girls in the South. Why is that? Part of it is because what we saw is, one, this lack of funding. Two, also to defeat the leadership pipeline, that we need to make sure that we're doing multi-generational strategies as we're seeing our leadership pipeline. And so there are two pieces that are raised kind of connected to this. One is the Black girls. We do a couple of things with Southern Black girls. Same model: money, movement building, and messaging. A different focus, because the focus is on building up the infrastructure to support Black girls and women. But one of the things that we do is we have a Black Girls Dream Fund, that through our Dream Fund, we support organizations on the ground, grassroots organizations that are working with girls, particularly girls empowerment. And in a moment that Black women in general are being attacked, just even on our reproductive rights, and a variety of other ways, we thought that would be really important. And so in the last 4 years, we've actually given out invested over $5 million to grassroots groups that support girls in all 13 states in the South. In addition to that, we support girls directly. We just have, I love Maggie. I think I'm going to see if I can grab it and put it in the chat. But we just did a funding cycle in connection with a rapper named Megan Thee Stallion and Nike, where we funded 100 girls to do projects where these girls between the ages of 14 and 24 created their own project around mental health and healing. And so we were able to fund 100 projects. They are amazing. And I will send you all, I'm going to see if I can put a clip in the chat right here for you to look at some of the videos and the highlights. I'm very, very proud of that work. And then our highlight, we do every year we have a big conference. This is kind of where our greatest need is at this point. We've got a conference this year in Atlanta on June 8th and 9th. It started out with 300. The next year we had 600. This year we will have over 1,200 girls that will come to Atlanta for 3 days, and it's focused on Afrofuturism, where the foundation is around STEM. It's really STEAM because the art. So we're literally looking at this, getting our girls really connected to STEM and any connections. I'll put this out. We're really, really desperately wanting to expand our relationships with people who are in the tech space and AR and VR spaces. That's really important to us, because what we think is a game changer is when girls in the South, and when people in the South in general, have access to these new technology tools, new technologies, that we're actually using AI for good, that we're looking at alternative ways, not just staying in the same space to feel good. We want people to feel good too, but we want to be a power in every aspect. And so that's what we do as well. And then the last point I raise, which is my other project, because I don't have enough things to do, is that because I was so concerned about the leadership pipeline, what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a mechanism for women who were leading amazing work in the South to have access to some of the best case studies and thinking around power, innovation, and leadership. And so for 2 years, I have a relationship and have been a fellow multiple times at Harvard University. And that we actually I'm so proud of it, an accredited executive education course, power, innovation, and leadership. I've got dedicated faculty from the business school and the Kennedy School. I wish y'all knew how hard that was to get this done, but it's done. We've had our first cohort last year of amazing women. I'll be glad to share the list of women, and they all said it was life-changing for them. Because it was an investment in that. And so anyway, those are my 3 big projects, my big buckets. The whole idea, they're all still connected to the same. If we build infrastructure, if we invest in people, if we give people a vision of something greater than what we have, not just constantly being on the defensive, but can we be on the offensive, where we're actually thinking about innovation differently, we're thinking about power differently, and we're organizing ourselves.
This is I have to say, you bring, at least to me personally, so much hope and inspiration. I listen to you talk for 5 minutes and I get so excited. How are you on time? I could keep you the whole time, but I want to be respectful. It's 1:10. Are you going to get
I've got about 5 minutes, and then,
okay.
So if I can do about 5 minutes, I'm leaving this evening. I'm on my tour. I'm actually on my way to Boston, some other places.
That's awesome. You're breaking up just a hair, but we've been able to get you. You're frozen.
Girls,
okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, so I'm here for you, Maggie, or if anybody has any, I'm here for you.
There was a question. I've got all kinds of questions, but I want to honor one of the questions that came out of the chat was, are you in coordination with the New Georgia Project in some way?
Absolutely. The New Georgia Project has been our partner since we first found it. So we work very closely with them. We do work together. We're aligned. So absolutely, that's one of our favorite groups.
That's fantastic. I want to put in a plug for the documentary that has been done about Black Voters Matter, that was produced by someone else whose name is escaping me, but you were gracious enough to send me the trailer. You want to tell us who the producers are?
Yes, Darisha Kai and Trevique Willis. One of Darisha, who is the director, is an Emmy Award winning a film producer. It is for during COVID. Interestingly, the project turned out not what we thought it was going to be, because part of what happened is when they reached out to us, they were documenting our work, and this was literally a month before COVID hit. Yeah. And so COVID hit, and we decided to continue. They decided they wanted to still go forward. So they caught us, they followed us for 10 months, I believe. And they literally saw us at the hardest organizing challenge we ever had. Like we were locked down in COVID. How in the world were we going to mobilize people this election cycle? And so they caught the good, bad, the ugly, and the powerful. And so we're so happy. I mean, in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful that we were able to catch that moment, because who would have thought that would happen? And so it was less about COVID. It really was around how do you build, and we think that it could be a powerful organizing tool, which is why we would like to see it. We're just subjects in it, but we are really supporting the filmmakers because we believe that if you can show where we were able to pull a victory and organize in the most hard and the worst circumstances possible, right?
Exactly.
That what is possible for this year, that we can do it, to be an inspiration. And we believe that people need more inspiration. Just as I said earlier, nobody's particularly excited about this election cycle. It feels like Groundhog Day all over again for many people. It doesn't seem like there's anything new on the table, and that can make people disengage. We believe that this film could be a tool to organize with. So it's a great film. I'll be glad. Maggie, you can certainly share the sample. We have a work sample.
Okay.
You can certainly share the work sample with your network.
Yeah, I would love to do that. It was very powerful, and I just keep thinking about how important it is to get out. It's also historically important. It's very historically important. And so, for those of you listening, we'll continue to give you opportunity or a way to use your own revenue sources to support this work, to support the work of Black Voters Matter, to support maybe directly through to supporting this, getting this documentary up. And it's in post-production. There's still a few $100,000 short, so every little bit counts, I know. So we're trying to help raise some money for that as well. Yeah, and when you started talking about this thing you're doing in Atlanta, I have a couple of connections you may or may not already know about, but that's offline. I'm gonna, on the tech side, we'll try and get you some names that might be of interest to you there. Gosh, I'm going to end by asking you just give you one last question. In the religious traditions I have studied, which was mostly actually the contemplative, when you were in the presence of a master, of a real spirit, someone who is really obviously deeply spiritually rooted, which you are, you would say to that person, "Give us a word." So before you go, just give us a word.
I will give you a word. Let me say, the people that are listening, I'll be real quick because I've been doing a lot of writing on this. I'm actually working on, I think it's going to wind up being a book, to be honest, but I've been doing a lot of work around the North Star and how do we find our North Star. And so I want to just say this to people, that I was doing an interview. I've been thinking about this kind of North Star piece. And I did an interview about a couple of weeks ago. And in this interview, I was doing with one of the major networks. The question came to me, I think it was CNN actually. The question came to me was, okay, we're in this really dark night of the soul. We're in this dark night of political history in America. Like, what is it that we do? And really the first image that came to me was, that's when the stars shine. That's when the stars come out. Yeah. That ultimately I was thinking about Harriet Tubman, and if you know the story of Harriet Tubman, she was actually led by the North Star. That's literally what she used to navigate to find herself to freedom, and made me start researching the North Star. And I looked up the North Star thinking that it was the brightest star in the sky. It's not the brightest star in the sky, but it's the most dependable because it's the most consistent. It's always consistent. It's the most dependable. You can always find it every day. And that's what made the North Star. And so as I was thinking about that, I also ran across these other, I just started going down, looking at stars and how many new stars have been born every day, and, and how vast the planet is. But I also ran across, which I heard when I was in my freshman year in school, college, was about this a phantom star, that ultimately there's a phantom star that, with a phantom star, you're actually seeing stars in the sky, but that star has burned out maybe millions of years ago. That all you're really seeing is a residue of, that is no longer a star. It's really, you're just seeing the residue, how long it took the light to reach the earth for you to see it. I would say to us in this moment, those of you that are feeling like, what are we going to do? Where's the hope? We've been here before. And particularly as an African-American in the South, I can tell you, we've been in worse circumstances. We've been here before. But it's always, if I look at the stories of Harriet Tubman and others, it has always been, right? At night, there are some that see night as dreary or scary. There are others that see nighttime as an opportunity. It is in the night. Stars are always in the sky, but it's in the nighttime that when the stars shine their brightest. This is our moment, y'all, that many folks that even in the history of slavery, they welcome the night, because this was the moment for them to actually go to something new called freedom. And so I'm going to say, where while this country is in this moment right now that is scary and is dark, that this is the moment that we should be the illumination of the world, that this is the moment that we should be demanding not just an election, but that we're demanding that we're not just the wealthiest in the world, but the healthiest in the world. So I would just leave with this note to you all that in the moment, in the moment where we're in our greatest darkness, that is when the stars shine its brightest. And so I just hope that every single person that is a part of this conversation recognize the immense opportunities that we have to actually get this country where we want it to go and where we need it to go.
Well, that is a fantastic way to end this conversation. I'm just really deeply appreciative of your time and your words and your energy and all the work you're doing. That is just so important for all of us. I'll say one last thing, I'll let you go, but we're having this little get together in September. You've been invited. I know you're busy, but if you can pop in, we sure would love to be able to meet you in person. And I know people on this call who are living in the Atlanta area would love to come too and be able to see you in person if that
Maggie,
works for your schedule.
If I can come, I will be there. I just
Appreciate
look at my schedule. I would love to be and share space with you. And I want to say this to you. Thank you for sharing your platform. Thank you for creating this platform. That what if all business owners gave of themselves like you're giving of yourself right now? Like, think about how much better the world would be. So I really want you to hear from the bottom of my heart how grateful I am to you, not just for your financial support and your donations. All of that is great. But really, y'all, this is really about love. That when we create space to love on each other and show that love and expand that love, that's the thing that's going to change this nation. It will not be our money, it will not be our politics, but it will be our humanity. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I will say on that note, our gratitude again, and we wish you safe travels. And for those of us who were able to join us in person, thank you. For those of us watching on our recorded video, we're grateful you're here, and we want you to heed the word and share that word. Thank you. With that, I will end the recording and say goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.